I never imagined that spending a summer with my aunties would change my life in ways I could never have predicted. At first, I thought it would be just a quiet escape from my usual routine. A few weeks of family bonding, good food, and lazy afternoons in their big old house. But what began as an ordinary visit soon became something extraordinary. Something that unlocked a side of me I didn't even know I had. Something that once uncovered, I could never turn away from again. It started small, as these things always do, with comments and laughter that seemed playful on the surface but carried an undercurrent I couldn't ignore. My aunties had always been stylish, confident women, each of them different but united in their shared love of clothes, makeup, and presentation. They adored fashion, they loved beauty, and they were never shy about expressing their opinions. From the moment I arrived, they teased me about how neat and tidy I was compared to most boys my age. One of them laughed, saying, "You take longer to get ready than we do, and that's saying something." I blushed, brushing it off, but inside I felt a flutter I couldn't quite explain. Their attention, their jokes, the way they studied me. It made me self-conscious but also strangely alive. One rainy afternoon, the power went out, and we all gathered in the living room with candles and cups of tea. My Aunt Sophie looked at me with a mischievous grin and said, "You know, with those cheekbones and those big eyes, you'd make a very pretty girl." The other aunties laughed in agreement, and my face burned. I tried to protest, but they weren't cruel. Their teasing had a warmth to it, a kind of affection. They didn't mean to hurt me, they meant to draw me in. And somehow, I found myself leaning toward it rather than away. The very next day, Aunt Clara appeared with a box. "We were cleaning out the attic," she said with a smile, "and we found some old things from when we were younger. Want to help us go through them?" I agreed, thinking it would just be dusty clothes and forgotten trinkets. But when we opened the box, it was filled with dresses, skirts, scarves, and jewelry from years gone by. The aunties pulled out items, laughing as they reminisced, but soon their eyes turned to me again. "Why don't you try something on for fun?" one of them said. My heart pounded. I shook my head, nervous, but they were insistent. They assured me no one would know, that it was just between us. Reluctantly, I gave in. They handed me a simple floral dress, light and soft. I slipped into the bathroom and put it on. At first I felt ridiculous, like an actor in the wrong role. But when I stepped out and saw the way their faces lit up, everything shifted. They gasped and clapped, showering me with compliments. "See, we told you," Aunt Sophie said. "You're adorable." My cheeks burned red, but inside I felt a strange, thrilling spark. From that moment on, it became a game, a secret game between me and my aunties. Each day they would introduce me to something new. One day it was makeup, another day jewelry, another day how to walk gracefully in heels. They coached me gently, correcting my posture, showing me how to move my hands, how to carry myself with elegance. At first, it was all laughter and teasing, but over time, something deeper began to take root. The more I tried, the more natural it felt. The more natural it felt, the more I wanted it. Of course, there were moments of fear. What if someone found out? What if the neighbors saw me practicing in the garden? What if I couldn't go back to being the person I was before? I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. But then I would remember the way I looked in the mirror with a touch of lipstick, or the way my auntie's eyes glowed with pride when I perfected a walk, and I couldn't deny the pull any longer. The turning point came one evening when they decided to give me a full transformation. "Tonight," Aunt Clara said with a dramatic flourish, "you're going to see what we see." They sat me down in front of the mirror, and all three of them worked together like artists on a canvas. One did my hair, brushing and styling it until it framed my face softly. Another worked on my makeup, carefully applying foundation, eyeliner, and lipstick. The third helped me into a dress that fit like it was made for me, a pale blue gown with delicate lace at the sleeves. When they finally stepped back and turned the mirror toward me, I couldn't breathe. The person staring back at me wasn't the boy who had arrived at their house weeks earlier. It was someone new, someone softer, someone radiant. My eyes shimmered, my lips curved into a shy smile, and my heart thundered with both fear and exhilaration. My aunties applauded, beaming with pride. "You're beautiful," they said in unison, and for the first time I believed them. That night we didn't just sit in the living room. They insisted I walk around the house, practice carrying myself with grace. They showed me how to hold my hands, how to cross my legs, how to smile without looking forced. Every correction was gentle, every lesson filled with encouragement. By the end of the evening, I wasn't just playing dress-up. I was becoming. But with becoming came conflict. When I took the makeup off and changed back into my old clothes, I felt hollow, like I had lost something. The boy I was supposed to be felt more like a costume than the dresses ever did. My aunties noticed my sadness. One morning, Aunt Sophie sat me down and said softly, "You don't have to hide from yourself. You don't have to choose right now. Just know that we see you and we love you no matter what." Her words brought tears to my eyes. For so long I had hidden even from myself, but here I was, being seen so clearly. The days that followed were filled with more exploration. They taught me how to match outfits, how to accessorize, how to do my own makeup without help. Each day I grew more confident, more comfortable, until finally I could look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back, not as someone pretending but as someone real. The climax came when they suggested I go outside with them. The thought terrified me, but their confidence was infectious. We chose a quiet afternoon and went to a cafe in town. I wore a modest dress, a cardigan and flats. My heart pounded with every step, convinced everyone was staring. But the truth was no one cared. People walked past, busy with their own lives. At the cafe, the server smiled warmly, treated me no differently, and for the first time I felt the outside world accept me as I was. When we returned home, my aunties hugged me tightly. "You did it," they said. I cried into their shoulders, overwhelmed with relief and joy. That moment marked the true beginning of my transformation. It wasn't just about clothes or makeup anymore, it was about identity, about discovering who I could be when I stopped running from myself. By the end of the summer, I was no longer the same person who had arrived at their doorstep. I had been reshaped, not by force, but by love and encouragement. My aunties hadn't just feminized me. They had helped me uncover a truth I had always been too afraid to face. I didn't just love what they were doing to me. I loved who I was becoming. And as I packed my bags to leave, they handed me a small box. Inside was a necklace, delicate and simple, with a charm shaped like a butterfly. "For our girl," they said with tears in their eyes. I wore it that day and I still wear it now. Because it reminds me that transformation isn't about losing yourself. It's about finally letting yourself fly. The more time I spent with my aunties, the more I felt that the person I was becoming wasn't a costume anymore. It wasn't some role I was playing for their amusement. It was something deeper, something that made me feel alive in ways I had never felt before. At first, I thought it was just the excitement of trying new clothes, of seeing my reflection softened by makeup and styled hair. But it was more than that. It was the way my aunties looked at me when I walked into a room. The way they treated me as if I had always belonged in this version of myself. They didn't see me as pretending. They saw me as discovering. Every compliment, every gentle correction when I struggled with eyeliner or stumbled in heels, carried with it a kind of love that I hadn't realized I'd been missing. It was as if they had always been waiting for me to step into this side of myself. And now that I had, they weren't going to let me retreat. But even with all the joy, there were moments of fear that gripped me late at night when I lay awake staring at the ceiling. What if people outside found out? What if this small bubble of safety my aunties created for me burst and the real world came crashing in? Would people laugh? Would they mock me, judge me, call me names I wasn't ready to hear? There were times I almost told my aunties that I wanted to stop, to pack everything away, to pretend none of it had happened. But then I would remember the way my reflection looked when I was fully transformed, The way my posture shifted. The way I carried myself with grace and confidence that had never been mine before. I couldn't deny that I was happier like this, that some part of me felt more at peace than it ever had. My aunties, of course, sensed the fear in me even when I didn't say a word. One evening, as I sat in the living room after another long day of being guided through wardrobe choices and practicing my walk, Auntie Miriam sat beside me. She placed her hand on mine and said softly, "You're safe here. No one outside has to know until you're ready. But I want you to ask yourself something. Are you hiding from them, or are you hiding from yourself?" Her words pierced me, not in a cruel way, but in a way that made me realize she understood exactly what I was struggling with. I didn't answer her, not then, but her question stayed in my mind like a whisper that wouldn't fade. Over the next few weeks, my aunties began to push me gently but firmly to take ownership of my transformation. Instead of them always choosing my outfits, they began asking me what I wanted to wear. Instead of doing my makeup for me, they handed me the brushes and told me to try. At first, I fumbled, my hands shaky, my lines uneven, my choices hesitant. But slowly, as they guided me, I began to trust my instincts. I started to pick dresses that made me feel radiant, colors that complemented me, shoes that didn't just look pretty but made me feel powerful when I walked. Makeup became less about covering flaws and more about highlighting the person I wanted the world to see. Every small success made me feel more in control of my journey, more confident that this wasn't just something being done to me. It was something I was choosing. Still, there were emotional twists I didn't expect. One evening, I overheard my aunties talking in the kitchen when they thought I was asleep. They were speaking about me, about how proud they were, but also how worried they were that one day I might be forced to choose between the person I was discovering and the expectations of others. "What if they hurt him?" one auntie whispered, her voice breaking. Another replied, "Then we'll protect her no matter what." I froze at the doorway, tears welling in my eyes, not just because of their words but because of the shift in pronouns. They weren't just humoring me. They truly saw me as someone new, someone worthy of being seen and loved. That moment became a turning point. I wasn't just playing dress-up anymore. I was stepping into a role I wanted to embrace fully, even if I didn't yet have the courage to say it out loud. The suspense of hiding this part of myself from the outside world grew heavier with time. My aunties suggested small steps, like trying on more subtle outfits outside of the house. Perhaps a softer hairstyle, or jeans paired with a feminine blouse, things that wouldn't draw too much attention but still allowed me to feel connected to my transformation. The first time I walked down the street in such an outfit, my heart raced. Every passerby felt like a threat, every glance felt like a spotlight. But the truth was, most people didn't even notice. The world wasn't as focused on me as I had feared, and that realization gave me strength. My aunties celebrated that small step as if I had climbed a mountain, showering me with hugs and encouragement. But perhaps the most emotional moment came when Auntie Miriam surprised me with a gift. It was a delicate silver necklace, with a small charm in the shape of a star. She clasped it around my neck and said, "This is for the person you're becoming. Every time you look at it, remember that you're not walking this path alone." I touched the charm and felt a lump in my throat. For the first time, I didn't feel like this was temporary. It felt like a promise, a recognition of something permanent that was blooming inside me. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself less afraid and more eager to continue the journey. My confidence grew, not just in how I looked but in how I carried myself. I began to see how the lessons from my aunties weren't just about clothes or makeup. They were about self-respect, about embracing vulnerability, about finding strength in authenticity. There were still nights of doubt, still moments when the old fears clawed at me, but those moments grew fewer, replaced by an excitement for what came next. One evening, as we all sat together after dinner, my aunties looked at me expectantly. Auntie Miriam finally asked, "So, tell us, how do you feel about who you are now?" The room grew silent. My heart pounded. I wanted to say so much, but the words tangled in my throat. Finally, I whispered, I feel like I'm becoming the person I was always meant to be. And I love it. The relief and pride that lit up their faces made my chest ache with happiness. It was the first time I admitted it aloud, and it felt like a door opening inside me that could never be closed again. That night, as I lay in bed with the necklace still resting against my skin, I realized that what began as a playful game between my aunties and me had transformed into something profound. I wasn't just their nephew anymore. I wasn't just experimenting. I was someone new, someone stronger, someone freer. My aunties had guided me, supported me, protected me, but in the end, it was me who chose to step forward. And though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wasn't going back. I was moving forward, embracing every twist, every challenge, every moment of joy and fear because this was my journey now. This was my story. And with my aunties by my side, I knew I had the courage to keep becoming the person I loved being. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel.